Here's a guy who thinks there are 3 reasons that atheists are wrong.
So let's end this silly debate because this argument is so old and outdated. So the atheists believe that the whole world is material. That means you can touch it, measure it, find it somewhere in the physical realm.
I do not, in fact, believe that the whole world is material. The world includes time, space, and energy, none of which are material. Sure, you can find them in the physical realm, but there are more things in the physical realm than just material things. I don't believe in non-physical things, like ghosts and magic, but there are atheists who do. Physicalism is not entailed by atheism. You can be an atheist and still believe in the supernatural.
However, here are 3 things that make that absolutely not true at all. So the first one is mathematics. Mathematics is the most observable, objective truth that we have. It's a logic that makes sense through and through.
That's because math is a set of propositions that are designed to be true by definition. 2 plus 2 equals 4 because 2 plus 2 is a way you can define 4.
And so, where is that exactly?
It's in the brain of anyone who adopts the axioms stipulated by math. Without any brains thinking about mathematical statements, they cease to exist. That doesn't mean that they become wrong. Rather, after all conscious entities die out, they will simply be meaningless.
Is it in the ground? Is it in the atoms? Is it in the sky?
It's in your brain.
Is it anywhere?
Yeah, it's in your brain.
The answer is no. You cannot touch math. You cannot find a problem. You cannot see the number 2 other than the one that we write down, which is not the number 2.
The reason for that is the same as the reason you can't see money. You can see the coins and bills that represent money, you can see a number on your bank statement representing what's in your account, but you can't see money in and of itself. Does that mean that money exists as some woo-woo platonic form? No. It's an invented idea. It's a useful fiction. The moment an authority with the power to enforce the value of money ceases to do so, that money ceases to exist. Numbers are the same. They only exist insofar as we conceive of them. That's why they exist in our brains.
We can only observe the logic. And so already, mathematics alone, seeing as atheists would die on that hill to protect math as the highest of virtue and value in scientific endeavor.
No, I wouldn't. The highest virtue in scientific endeavor is observation. If the implications of a mathematical formula are contradicted by observation, from the standpoint of science, the math is wrong. The only reason to use math is to conceptually organize observed phenomena. If it stops doing that, we'll stop using it.
We understand that they believe mathematics is real.
Mathematics is an invented fiction.
We also understand that they would protect it.
No, I wouldn't. I would abandon it the moment it stops being useful for organized observed phenomena.
So, if that is real, and it's non-material...
It's only non-material in the sense that photosynthesis and digestion are non-material. In other words, it's not tangible, but it is still something that matter does. An activity that is carried out by matter is not a material object, but it is still a material activity. Math is a physical process carried out by things made of matter.
Then how can everything in the world be material alone?
It's not. Everything is physical, but not everything is material.
Number 2, philosophy. Now, philosophy to a lot of people is useless.
People who claim that don't seem to realize that this is a philosophical position.
But what philosophy does is study the nature of reality.
Sometimes it does, not all of it does. For example, phenomenology studies experience in and of itself and ignores the question of whether our experiences are real or tell us anything about reality.
And then it turns it into relational wisdom. How do I act if the world is this way, right?
That's really only ethics. There are lots of other questions that philosophy seeks to address.
So, it teaches you ideas of truth, for example.
It teaches several different ideas of truth. Now, I suspect that this guy means that it teaches true ideas, and maybe sometimes it does, but it also teaches ideas of truth in the sense that it teaches that there are different ways you can conceive of truth. The idea that truth is any claim or belief that in some sense matches reality is only one concept of truth. It's called the correspondence theory of truth, and it's not the only one that philosophers use.
And science would not be here if it were not for the philosophies that came beforehand.
Well, they didn't all come beforehand. Some of them developed alongside the science. Science makes a lot of use of empiricism, but empiricism as a philosophy didn't finish developing before science was invented. It developed alongside it. Falsifiability, for example, is a relatively recent development in the philosophy of empiricism that was very influential on refining how scientists do science.
And so philosophy deals with principles. And here's a principle for you, that the way to the truth is through honest experimentation.
That depends on what you mean by truth. Experimentation is based on observation and experience. It can tell you whether a claim is consistent with experience, but if your experiences are all illusory, it can't tell you whether any claim matches reality.
Is that true? Can we find out what's more factually accurate by searching the truth through honest experimentation and honest findings?
We can find what's most consistent with experience if that's what you mean by truth.
The answer is yes, and every scientist would also put this at the highest of value in their scientific efforts.
So both math and empiricism are two values that are both the highest? How does that make any sense?
Which means that science is predicated upon these philosophical truths.
It's predicated on certain goals, not truths. Typically, the goal of science is to find ways of thinking about the world, usually these are called theories or models, that consistently, falsifiably, and most parsimoniously match experience, but we don't even aim at perfect consistency.
These philosophical ideas. If you don't believe in truth, there's no point in searching for anything.
Again, that depends on what you mean by truth. Sometimes models are used that we know are incomplete because they are close enough to what we observe to meet all of our practical needs. For example, the model of our solar system that scientists use doesn't take into account the gravitational effect of Alpha Centauri. This makes it less consistent with observation, but we don't bother adding the gravitational effect of Alpha Centauri to our calculations of planetary motion because it's too small to have any consequences big enough to care about. There is not enough practical advantage to making our model of the solar system more accurate. Adding complication to the model just to get a negligible increase in accuracy would be a net disadvantage.
So number 3 is the soul. Now this is the hardest out of all of them for me to explain to you.
That's because it's the most nonsensical.
But the soul formerly was known as the place where your spirit resides and all of your energy.
So your soul and your spirit are two different things?
It was who you are, down at the core. We know things like greed, misery, and courage. We all know these things, and I don't need to teach you. You've experienced them your whole life.
Well, yeah, they are all emotions carried out by my limbic system or observable behaviors.
Yet the scientists would have you believe that greed is found in the brain activity, in a brain scan. You can see it there. You can see courage. But that's not what it is. That is what the brain does and what the body does when you are experiencing or going through that pattern of behavior.
And a pattern of behavior is a physical phenomenon.
Because greed is something you can't touch.
There are lots of physical phenomena that are not tangible. You can't touch photosynthesis. It's a process, not a tangible thing. That doesn't mean it isn't physical.
You don't, and me and you, we have never gone through our life looking at people's brain scans to find out whether they're a greedy person. No, how do we do it? We do it through looking at context of facts.
We do it by looking at behavior. We do it by empirically observing physical phenomena. If we look at brain scans, we could probably find activity that makes it more or less likely that a person will behave in a greedy way.
So we've seen their behavior once, we've seen them here, we've seen them there, and then what do we get? We get this idea that this person is greedy.
What does this have to do with the existence of the soul? And how does looking at their behavior make greed any less a natural physical phenomena than looking at what a greedy person's brain is doing?
And that reveals their nature, which is what we called the soul for the longest time. So at the end of the day, you've got philosophy, you've got mathematics, and you've got the soul.
What does this have to do with God? How does a pattern of empirically observable behavior, which is purely physical, show that non-physical things exist? And even if it did show the existence of a non-physical soul, why would that mean that a God exists?
And with these 3 things, I ask you, if those exist, then you have to admit that non-material things exist.
Of course, space, time, and energy are all non-material things. I think what you're trying to argue is that non-physical things exist. I don't know how you get that idea by pointing to physical phenomena, but even if non-physical things existed, why would that mean that a God exists?
And if that's true, then can we please just end the argument, at least that the world is just reducible to what we can see and touch and measure? It's not.
I have never claimed that the world consists of things we can touch, but math and philosophy are both things the brain does, and we can experience our brains doing them. To some extent, we can also see our brains carrying them out on a brain scan.
Not in the scientific way anyways. We can measure greed, but we do it in a very different way.
The way that you said we can measure greed is by observing someone's behavior. That sounds an awful lot like it's something we can see. Maybe what he means is that we can't see greed like we can see objects. But we can't see photosynthesis like we see objects either. Photosynthesis is a physical behavior, and in the same respect, greed is also a physical behavior.
So let's end this silly debate, and like, subscribe, and I will be posting more things so we can hopefully move on because this argument is so old.
Yes, lots of philosophers have shown the problems with substance dualism, which is what this guy seems to be advocating, for centuries. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.